I want to take you on a journey. That's how it looked like when we started in one of the areas called Harare, which is still in Khayelitsha. It's not in Zimbabwe. It's one of the areas in Khayelitsha. And that's when we started in 2004. How it looked like, and we transformed the area, which was a crime hotspot, into probably the nicest urban park in Khayelitsha as we speak. I would like to take you through the transformation, what it takes. So I have to give you a little bit of the project background. It's a pilot project in Khayelitsha, and we heard it's going to be replicated in Port Elizabeth, and it's an area-based approach. Still, if you compare it probably to most of the other low-income areas, it got a lot of resources. It's not overcrowded by all means. Those are the three areas where we started: Harare, Kuyasa, and Site C. And those are the areas that basically the city asked us to add to that, and that's the transformation into the informal settlement program. That is informal settlements, while the first three is basically formal areas, so we're focusing on public domain. The latter three is basically bringing in all the services. The vision is to build safe and integrated communities to overcome the four types of exclusion that we see in low-income communities. And that's your economic, cultural, social, and institutional exclusion. And I think it's important because often we only focus on the economic and social, probably a little bit around the institutional, but often we forget the cultural component to that. And I think that's very important to have that. The situational crime prevention, yes, it's based largely on the CEPTED approach. And then the interesting one, I think that's the new dimension, is the institutional crime prevention. And that's what we see with the management of spaces and facility. The operation maintenance has to do to a large extent. And how do we interact with the communities around community participation, and what power relations do we actually have in our communities. So we came up with a so-called hybrid model. And that's basically taking into account the public health life cycle approach. That's the World Health Organization. Which starts at early childhood intervention, so we have components that deal with that. It's a school-aged intervention, and it's the economic programs targeted at youth. So it's as you progress up to 26 years that you basically have the public health cycle approach. The things that we put a lot of effort on or emphasis on is the community-based social capital. I think there's a lot of good examples in Latin America that show that the success of that. And it basically starts with community mobilization, community participation as such. Then we are very strong on community delivery of services. However, can we make sure that local solutions are also implemented locally? How can we make sure that those power relationships that I spoke about are shifted towards a more localized level? And it's the operational maintenance on an area-based basis. There's the notion of voluntarism, and that's the backbone of our program. Yes, we are funded, internationally funded. Yes, it's a big program, but sooner or later the funding will dry out, and we have to get people that carry on. And that's really that we said right from the beginning. Voluntarism is your entry gate to skills development and to employment, and that has been accepted by the community. And then also that operation maintenance management is used to generate local skills and local income opportunities. So do as much as possible in the local communities. I quickly want to take you through our crime mapping exercise, and it's based exclusively on perception because we didn't trust the police statistics. So this is basically an overlay of focus groups which we did in different communities in a specific area. That's Harare here. Second element of the baseline survey is looking where's currently the economic activities are happening. So you can see that here quite an evenly spread of facility of economic activities. About 20% of the households run a business. And then we basically ask people, the business owners, where would you like to be? And there you can already see sort of a spatial concentration coming up around public buildings, around transport interchanges, and so forth. That's interesting. And the third element of the baseline survey is basically looking at the available land. Where is land that can be developed? Because that's obviously, if you're running an infrastructure component of your project, you want to be able to implement something. With the community, we then basically did, that's part of that community action plan, we basically looked at where are potential things. And one of the concepts that the community came up, and Nazira has said it's like the oil drops that are radiating. We have it on a much more localized level, and that was called active boxes. Active box concept is basically that the local community takes ownership of perceived dangerous spaces and give it a positive connotation. And that's manifested with a building that is managed and maintained by the local community. And this went into the urban design framework plan. So that's now the urban design framework plan that encompasses all the different elements of the project. And you can see there's quite a large of development that's implemented. Just a couple of snapshots. This is one of those active boxes with a couple of trading facilities for the local businesses. That's basically the city had to build a library, and we basically convinced the city together with the community that we change it into a house of learning, and that requires also that institutional arrangement that we are basically the driver of certain development. So the funding sits under the line department of the library services. But we provided all the technical service, and we could bring in additional partners. That means social development, the province with adult-based education, and the library are now sharing one building. Okay, what about mainstreaming institutionalization? There are three elements of that. It's basically mainstreaming some of the elements of VPOU into line functions. And you can see the urban design guidelines is used at planning. So, for instance, some of the adverts they are sending out now is basically after tenders are using those urban design guidelines. It's around the early childhood development policy. That's now basically used in the social development as well. The neighborhood watch on volunteerism is done by sub-councils and by the safety departments. Community delivery of services, it's introduced in the utility departments and parks and gardens. So it's quite a nice mix of that. Then it's the replication of the model into other areas. While we're working in Kailicha at this point in time, the next phase will go into three other areas: Menenberg, Hanover Park, and Guguletu. Some of them, if you speak in South African terms, often South Africa defines itself over races. So I apologize that I'm using those terms here as well, but Menenberg and Hanover Park is a colored area, and Guguletu is a black area. So we're going into other cultural areas at this point in time. Then basically mainstreaming the methodology. And the methodology is now used in the informal settlement transformation program, and I will show quickly examples of that. And then also scaling up at the province. In the province of the Western Cape, we have objective 5, which is around safety and security, and 5.4 is basically the whole society safety approach, and it's basically VPOU that will be used in the province. And then if you look at national level, there's specifically the national government got 12 outcomes, and we are specifically interested in outcomes 3 and 8, which mean all people in South Africa are in field safe as number 3, and number 8 is sustainable union settlements and improved quality of household life. Just showing a very quick through the informal settlement upgrading program. I've spoken about the community action plan, and that's done much more holistic in the informal settlement upgrading program, because we're now also going into service provision. And we have now, instead of those 3 areas, our tripod, we now got 6 work streams. It's cultural and social, it's economic, institutional. We singled out safety and security, we singled out infrastructure, and monitoring and evaluation. And then it's short, medium, and long term. You can read it at your own time. What are new challenges in comparison to the VPOU, to the informal settlement? And that's that we even have in informal settlements an even higher crime rate than in formal areas. There's inconsistent police patrols. The police is not going into informal settlements on a regular basis. There's a dispute, obviously, amongst people over access to basic services. There's a competition and contestation. There's high levels of domestic violence, much higher than in the formal areas. And there's no security of tenure, and we spoke about that. And there's potential disputes around enumeration that we will do as part of the process. But what also are opportunities that we can use? It's basically using right from the beginning urban design principles in the urban design plan or framework plan for preventative measures. With all that information and knowledge and experience that we gained over the last couple of years, we are in a very good position. And also talking about the phased security of tenure system. So it's basically a gradual system on that. Then we can fully integrate into the upgrading social, situation, and operation and maintenance. And one of the examples is that we're using the early childhood development, for instance.